So if it's not red, are we live? Because I'm looking for green. So, nope, we're good? Awesome. Appreciate it. All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Chris Heppel, and I'm the chair of the Fire Policy Committee here at DPSST. We're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order for the Fire Policy Committee meeting for the February 28th. We're at DPSST, Almsville Highway in Salem, Oregon, and it is now 9:13 in the morning. Thanks for those of you who are joining us. Real quick fire policy announcement to open up the meeting. This is a public meeting subject to public meeting law, and it will be digitally recorded. Deliberation of issues will only be conducted by the Fire Policy Committee members unless permitted by the chair. Remember to always state your name for the record. For professional standard cases, only information contained in the staff report can be considered once the staff report is adopted. Assumptions, outside knowledge, or personal experiences should not be included in any discussion. Individuals who engage in disruptive behavior that impedes official business will be asked to stop being disruptive or leave the meeting. Additional measures may be taken to have disruptive individuals removed if their continued presence poses a safety risk to other persons in the room or makes it impossible to continue the meeting. With that, we'll go ahead with our introductions and look for staff. Madison, if you could please call the roll.
Committee Member Heppel.
Present.
Committee Member McGrew.
Present.
Committee Member Berger.
Here. Present. Present.
Isaac.
I can hear you guys doing it, but you're not hearing us, maybe.
I can't hear anyone on your side, but I just heard Isaac.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That was weird. We just went through roll call for everyone here at DPSST. So the last person that I need is Isaac, Committee Member McLean.
Here.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great. DPSST, Caleb Ballrat. Brooke Valley-Raby, DPSST.
Joe Castle, DPSST.
Jennifer Howell, DPSST.
Sam Tang, DPSST. And Bill Steele, DPSST. Trevor Bosmark, Sound Fire.
Well, that completes the introductions. For those of you with an agenda in front of you, we have 7 agenda items. For just a slight change in our agenda, we're going to move agenda item number 7 up to be next and hear from updates from the director of DPSST, followed by Kayla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Phil Castle for the record. My updates are relatively short today, and I appreciate the agenda change for me. I have to go on to another committee here at 9:30 for a statewide committee on law enforcement standards of conduct. Our agency, just like OSFM, is bracing for 25-27 budget. We are doing a lot of work for that at this moment, as well as preparing our schedule for 25-27 to accommodate what we anticipate for student flow. We are also, Kayla and I, as well as the LE side of the house, are sort of working together on our 5 Corners training plan throughout the state, our regional training program, which is a little bit different, and it's something that we've put together after what we've learned on our Around the State tour, listening tour. We're really excited to roll this out, which our 5 Corners training program is kind of what it sounds like, all corners of the state, and our 5th corner is the center of the state. Making sure that we're bringing all of our resources that we can to every part of the state at least once per year. So that is, we're working on that plan now. I'll let Kayla talk a little bit more about this, but we're also planning a Firefighter 1 course to be run here at DPSST in 2025, which we're excited. We haven't done that in a long time. We've heard some interest in that, so we're going to do it. So we're very excited about that. I want to flag of note for this committee is that amongst our policy option packages that we are pursuing, we are looking for new facilities for this this academy here. And in that, we are looking to add a dirty classroom, a fire classroom, specifically a dirty one in the bottom of a new dorm that we're asking for. In our last surge that we had over the winter, we exceeded capacity in our current dormitory. We know that we are going to need new dorms and we need more classrooms. And we do not have a dirty classroom, which would be very, very valuable for us to accommodate fire. We also are looking to add a large tilt-up building that has wide open space, and we are using as our gauge to be big enough as if we can use a ladder truck inside of it. So we want to be able to deploy a ladder truck inside of it. Probably won't be able to get full height, but we'll be able to use, we want to be able to use run diesel engines and things like that. So fire and military, and it can be a very useful indoor facility to do all kinds of training. I won't go into full detail on all of our policy option packages, but that's just of note. The other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to thank you for this role. And I like to say this to all the policy committees. This is a big deal, what you do here. I mean, clearly you're kind of busy right now. And to take away your time to be here and to do this is a really big deal, but it's very, very important work. So we are very grateful that you're taking the time out of your busy day and your busy lives right now to do this. And I also appreciate what you're doing for the state right now. It's a huge thing. So thank you all for what you're doing. I also want to thank the team, because this is a lot of work to put together this meeting right here and to put everything together. And barring your questions, I want to make sure I leave a moment for questions if you have them. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to turn it over to Kayla.
Director, just for the benefit of folks who might see this video later, can you just define what a dirty classroom is?
Yeah, so a dirty classroom, and if I get this wrong, help me. So not being a firefighter myself, my understanding is so that if firefighters are training, doing active training, wearing turnout gear, and fighting a fire, they can go right from that environment right into a classroom to debrief on that or do whatever didactics they need to do that would be valuable right after that active training. Instead of having to clean themselves off first and store their gear where they might lose training value. Did I describe that? Okay. Okay.
Well said, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the director, either in the room or online? Hearing none, thank you, and thank you, sir, for your service and to your staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kayla.
Yeah, thank you. Kayla Ballrot for the record. As Bill was saying, we do have a couple of 2025 goals, one being the 5 Corners plan. So currently working with law enforcement side, their regional program, with Jim DeSoli, the manager of that program, as well as his team, just to kind of get feedback from the Oregon Fire Service as well as the law enforcement side to see exactly what that joint training looks like and what each region wants. So we don't want to go into a region without kind of, well, I guess with assuming that we know what each region wants. So kind of in talks with everyone right now. So if anyone has any ideas, just please feel free after the meeting to let me know or shoot me an email.
that would be great. But kind of some of the ideas that we're kicking around right now are active threat training. We've heard a lot of desire for that. Any kind of joint ethics, behavioral health training. I know the law enforcement side likes our forcible entry prop, so probably bring that out for both sides to use. So just things like that. And then as well as the Firefighter One Academy here on campus. We had one, I believe it was 2017, 2018. We actually had a Firefighter 1 and 2 Academy on campus. So several weeks in a row, students came Monday through Friday. I think it was like 8 weeks long. It was a success. It filled up. It's a lot of work for our staff, but we're excited to put that on. So kind of still in the early stages of both of those items, but looking forward to that in 2025. We also ask for 2 grants each year, or almost every year, one of them being the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, and then one of them being the State Fire Training Grant. The State Fire Training Grant is a maximum of $20,000, so it is a smaller grant, but it allows us to put on NFA classes throughout the state, in which we otherwise may not be able to. So that is a huge benefit to us, and we received it. So we were awarded that grant for the next September through August time period, which is excellent. And then in addition to that, we also received the AFG, the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. So we actually asked for over $400,000 worth of props, and we got awarded the full amount. So we will receive 2 flammable liquids and gas props, 1 vehicle fire prop, and 1 ventilation prop. Of course, we already have kind of a cadre of these props, but we are looking to kind of bolster our cadre of these props so that each region has their own set. And that way there's less kind of sharing between regions, less driving, less wear and tear for our staff, but then also more availability of these props for the Oregon Fire Service. So it'll take a little bit, procurement-wise, to get these props actually in our hands, but we are working toward that. We were just awarded the grant, so we're working toward that, but you should see that hopefully in the near future. I always want these things to be much faster than they are, but my goal, near future, you'll see those in play. We also, this is a maintenance recertification year, as some of you might know. So currently all of the packets for anyone who is certified have been sent out to the Oregon Fire Departments, and those are due back at the end of December. We have received 50 back so far out of the probably almost 300 fire departments where we have people certified. So kind of good at this point. The fire service tends to like to wait till November or December to get those back. Just know we may have a backlog at that point if we receive kind of quite a few packets at once. Michelle Hilt in our office is the main one that processes these maintenance recertification packets, and she currently has no backlog. So if your department has sent in a maintenance recertification packet and you notice that your firefighter certifications haven't been updated yet, just give her a call and see if maybe it got lost in the mail or something like that. Lastly, kind of along the same lines as the State Fire Training Grant, we do have several National Fire Academy classes coming up. So we have the MICDO series in Tillamook and in Pendleton in November and October, November, as well as some leadership series classes coming up in Eugene, and more to come on that one as well. You can always check our Eventbrite page for any National Fire Academy training that we do the registration for. Sometimes these registrations are handled locally. Sometimes they prefer to do registration, and sometimes they might charge a fee for a lunch or some snacks or something like that. So if that's the case, they handle registration. But those always go out through our mass email system, our Gov delivery system, and they're announced on our newsletter. So if you or your department are interested in knowing about all of the upcoming class National Fire Academy opportunities, you can always look on our Eventbrite, but then also be sure to follow our Gov delivery and our newsletter. Anyone have any questions? I think that is the end of my report.
Any questions for Kayla?
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you.
Any questions online? Okay. Thanks, Kayla, to you and your team. Moving on to agenda item number 2. This will be approval of the minutes. In your board packet, just want to see if has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yep.
Okay. Are there any changes, recommended changes, either in the room or online?
This is Claire McGrew. No changes from me. And I would move that the committee approve the minutes from the February 28th, 2024 Fire Policy Committee meeting.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor, looking for a second.
Andy Bonson for the record, I can second it.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, if staff could call for a roll call to vote.
Committee member Carragher,
Accept.
committee member McGrew,
Approved.
committee member Ponce,
Yes.
committee member Heppel,
Aye.
committee member Olson,
Approved.
committee member Lindauer,
Aye.
committee member McLean.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving on to agenda item number 3, this will be the discretionary case review. At this time, I'll turn it over to Brooke with DPSST staff to present the case.
Thank you. Good morning, Brooke Valley for the record. So we have just a quick review of the discretionary case review process that we like to touch base with because we don't always have 4 meetings a year and we have some new faces. So this just covers why you are seeing the cases that you're seeing and how the process works through the policy. If there's any questions, I think we had a message in there. Can everybody online hear okay?
Yeah, you're saying somebody has a
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So the Fire Policy Committee will review convictions deemed as discretionary based on the following criteria. That DPSST fire program receives an application for certification or an E1 application for certification eligibility. When we run our background check and we find that that they have a conviction in their history and that conviction occurred within the last 10 years of receipt of the application or E1, and that conviction carries a possible sentence of more than 1 year. And these are considered felonies in Oregon due to the different state sentencing and definitions of felonies and misdemeanors. That's why we use the sentencing rather than just felony and misdemeanor. So those would be considered felonies, and any felony that occurred in the last 10 years that are not a Measure 11 crime, you would review. Any conviction that occurred within the last 5 years of receipt of the application or E1, and that can carry a possible sentence of more than 30 days, but not more than 364. These would be misdemeanors in Oregon. And the conviction or crime has any of the following circumstances, which would be dishonesty or deceit, a sexual offense, or the crime is sexual in nature, is a drug offense, involves discrimination, involves destruction of property, a crime against a public agency, involves illegal use or possession of a deadly weapon, involves violence, abuse, or neglect against a person or an animal. So those are the criteria that cases come before you. And these would only come before you if we received an application or if we find out that somebody has a conviction and they have active DPSST certifications. If the person doesn't have certifications or they have certifications that are in a lapsed state, we wouldn't open a case until we receive another application or a reinstatement form. So on the next page is the discretionary case flow. So we would present the case to you. The firefighter is given the opportunity to present verbal mitigation. Then the Fire Policy Committee discusses the case in its entirety, including any aggravating and mitigating circumstances. Then you would vote to adopt the staff report, and then you would vote to take action or no action against their certifications. And then the board would affirm or return your recommendation. If you take no action against the certifications, then the individual would be allowed to keep their certifications. If you take action, then their certifications would be denied or revoked. Are there any questions about this process?
Kayla Ballrock for the record. I just want to add really quickly, and that was a great summary. The action on someone's certification will deny or revoke them for 1 year from the board meeting. If they want to reapply after that 1 year and their conviction still falls within the 5 years of the misdemeanor and 10 years for the felony, you'll see them again. The point of that is to see if they've done any other mitigation that outweighs the aggravating circumstances, and then maybe at that point they can be certified. Or they just wait until after their 5 years or 10 years passes and then reapply again. And if there's no other convictions in their history, more recent convictions, then you won't see them again.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we're ready for the next agenda item.
Just want to make sure, before we move on, there is no questions. It was a good summary there by Kayla. Any questions in the room? Hearing none. Any questions from online? All right, great. Yeah, thanks, Brooke. Appreciate that. Agenda item number 4 is fire case reviews. I'll go ahead and turn it over to staff. I believe we have someone who's going to speak in this particular case.
Good morning. Again, Brooke Belly-Ruby for the record. Our case is for Clayton Dew, and is Chief Burris in the meeting? Okay, perfect. So DPSST staff received an application, an E1 form for Clayton Dew, which is an application to verify certification eligibility. It allows the fire program to run fingerprint results for an individual prior to them submitting an application for certification. In our routine processing of E1 applications, staff found that Dew had a criminal conviction in his history. In April of 2022, Dew pled no contest to and was convicted of driving under the influence of 0.08% alcohol, causing bodily injury in the state of California, and there was an additional enhancement for this conviction of great bodily injury. This case is being reviewed by the Fire Policy Committee because the conviction occurred within the last 10 years, and the sentencing qualifies it as an equivalent to a felony conviction in the state of Oregon. The following is a summation of the events that occurred that led to Dew's arrest and conviction. On September 1st, 2021, Clayton Dew was driving a commercial truck with a trailer of redwood logs. Accompanying Dew was the owner of the trucking company's daughter, who was riding along to determine why Dew had been burning through tires. During this drive, Dew crashed into the northbound guardrail, which caused the truck to overturn onto its side and the logs to spill out onto the road, which blocked all lanes of traffic. Dew and his passenger both lost consciousness and were injured in the accident. Later, when contacted by police at the hospital, the officer noticed signs of intoxication on Dew, including bloodshot eyes and the odor of alcohol. His blood alcohol content was confirmed to have been at 0.08% or higher. Dew's passenger was also contacted by police at the hospital, and she reported that she told Dew to slow down several times before the crash. Because of the crash, she sustained a broken back, hip, cuts to both arms, and head trauma. There was mention in the report that the seatbelt was not in use. It doesn't indicate whether both people in the vehicle were not wearing seatbelts or if it was one or the other, but this may have contributed to the level of injury sustained. After his release from the hospital, Dew was arrested and transported without incident to the Del Norte County Jail. In this case, DPSST staff found the following as relevant circumstances for consideration. Dew was affiliated with Bandon Rural Fire Department at the time of this incident. He was not certified at the time of the incident. He is still on probation in Oregon until June 6th of 2026, and he still owes fines and fees to the Del Norte County Superior Court. Now, Chief Willie Burris of Myrtle Point Fire will be able to give mitigation on behalf of Clayton View. And I will set the timer for 5 minutes. And I realize I missed your statement.
So just as a reminder, as Chief Burris comes online and we set up the timer, they're allowed 5 minutes for the time. Another keynote is that there's no questions back and forth during this briefing or presentation by the chief. So with that, we'll go ahead and hear from Chief Burris.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Chief.
Oh, okay. So just to introduce myself, I'm Willie Burris, the fire chief here at Myrtle Point Fire Department. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time and allowing me to attend this meeting. Clayton really wanted to be here, but he's at work logging in a remote area without cell service. So he asked if I could attend, and I certainly agreed to. He works super long hours for his family. Yeah, you just heard the synopsis of the incident. The very unfortunate thing. Clayton, and we all can agree that very easily that he made some very, very, very poor decisions. Of note, the passenger in the vehicle was his girlfriend at the time, which was also the boss's daughter. He did consume alcohol and the night prior to the crash, and yeah, it was a very unfortunate thing. He did have alcohol in his system, and also being a driving a commercial vehicle and operating with a commercial driver's license, obviously the threshold was much higher. There were injuries, pretty significant as you can hear, and he was charged with some assault charges as well as driving under the influence. Clayton has immediately accepted responsibility for the crash and causing the injuries. He feels badly. He is very embarrassed. As you could see that he did not contest the charges and was convicted. It was a real eye opener for him. Again, he feels badly. I talked to him quite a little bit about it. Since then, he has, that incident caused him to really change his way of thinking and the way he operates. Again, he accepts immediate responsibility for it. Since then, he has found the love of his life and became married. He's had one child. He has another child on the way. He has bought a home here in Myrtle Point. And he has joined the fire department here in Myrtle Point. He was on Bandon Fire previously, and at the time of this incident, I've talked to the Bandon Fire Department, and they were in full support of him. Again, I've said it a few times, but he feels badly about it, and he and we all agree that he has made some very poor decisions when that happened. Since the incident, he has not consumed any alcohol, does not frequent any places that alcohol are served, and has really moved on. He's joined the fire department again to serve his community and to kind of give back and help pay for his actions that day. He's very passionate. Since he's joined our fire department, he hasn't hardly missed any calls except for when he's at work. He's at drill every night, and feels really bad when he is not at drill. He's a very good volunteer firefighter. He's very active, helps with our community events, even while working long hours at his job to support his family. He will be working and has dreams of having these charges expunged or reduced on his record, and has dreams of becoming an EMT to help the community even further as a volunteer. At that, I'll leave it at that, and I hope you consider his actions after this crash and what he has done in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
So now we'll turn it back over to the committee for discussion of both aggravating and mitigating circumstances. And then after your discussion, I will reiterate the aggravating and mitigating just to make sure that we've covered all of them. And then you will vote to accept or return the staff report, and then vote to take action or no action.
Okay. With that, I'll open up the case for discussion. Just a reminder, if you could state your name and identify any aggravating or mitigating factors. I'll open that up to the committee at this time. I'll start with just a couple of aggravating factors. Chris Heppel, chair of the committee for the record. A couple of things to note is that if you dig into the PD record, that consumption was admittedly at least 6 alcoholic beverages. I bring that up as just looking at the sequence of time from the event which took place in September, which took place in the late evening, and then the subsequent timeline of the incident occurring just after about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then the blood alcohol taken at about 5. So there's a pretty significant period of time. The individual specifically, according to the record, indicated a 0.116. So I just bring that up as an extenuating factor, part of time period, what the alcohol was, etc. The other part noted was the injury to another individual. That is pretty significant, as long as additionally there was damage to public property that was associated with this as well. The roadway, the guardrail, etc. that was associated with that. Disappointingly, another component is I'm certainly appreciative of the efforts that the individual is taking, but they still owe their fines to the Superior Court. So we haven't closed our loops on our responsibilities that are associated with that, and the individual is still under probation, even in the state of Oregon, until June of 26. I just put those pieces in mind as we go forward. The other component I just kind of struggle with is that you're on a CDL, and so those who have those, that's a much higher, you're held at a much higher standard because of the type of vehicle that you are operating. In this particular case, it was a loaded log truck, and the exposure and danger that you create when operating in that environment is dangerous. And that's why the standards are what they are in that particular event and surrounding that particular event. Just looking at the timeline component, the event did take place in 2021. The 5-year component would expire in 2026, and he does come off probation in June of 26. So I put that in as just a discussion timeline as folks are making their decisions around this particular case. In terms of the mitigating components, I certainly appreciative of the individual and what they've done with their life and moving forward, etc. Just a piece I'm a little disappointed is I didn't hear anything around was there any type of alcohol diversion components or classes or things like that that we took to help rectify our problem? Have we corrected the problem that's associated with that? I hear that piece, but I just asked that as just in my own thoughts and discussion around this particular case. I'm going to close my comments there. Again, I go back to the group. It is still open for any aggravating or mitigating factors.
So Andy Bolster, for the record, I agree with everything you said, and one other aggravating factor for me is that the passenger asked him to slow down a few times, and then one of the reasons stated that she was riding in there is that they noticed that the tires were wearing. So I'm wondering if there was erratic behavior driving for a while going on here. So I question that. I am also disappointed that there is no substance abuse counseling and or treatment or education mentioned in any of this. So I don't know whether that goes, it's an aggravating factor. That would go a lot for me as mitigating if that were completed and or even attempted, but there's no mention of that at all. Yeah, mitigating factor is 4 letters of support come along with this case, so you can look at that as mitigating factors, but that's about all I see. So with that, I'll close out my comments.
So Andre Lindauer, for the record, I echo everything that's been said so far. phenomenally bad decision-making with the peril of hurting someone else who did not ask for that. Fully loaded log truck is a dangerous weapon. So yes, we hold our public service employees to a higher standard. And although we have heard that that Mr. Dew has not consumed alcohol since, that's I would agree that some sort of diversion, some sort of rectifying of the situation, also the payment of the fines, you have to put your money where your mouth is. And I understand that people have to work hard to provide for their families, but there are consequences for actions. And that ends my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments, either in the room or online, around aggravating or mitigating circumstances or factors?
I'll add to it, Sean Olson. Same, I agree with what you guys are saying, and the other part to it is just reiterating the idea of, we know the well-known hazard of driving a log truck. It's a very high-risk vehicle, especially out on public roads. Looking at it and looking at the whole case, there's numerous factors that took place that put public safety at risk, put his passenger at risk, put himself at risk. The timing, I totally agree with, like, we all make mistakes. He's probably learned from it at this point, but I would kind of be on the same page too, is I'd love to have seen something like, okay, I've done full force at trying to mitigate this and have efforts made in education wise. And maybe I'm thinking of this incorrectly, but, and I don't know all the laws behind it, but if he had a CDL in California and he's driving log truck there, how is he driving log truck now in Oregon? Was he able to get his CDL back in Oregon? Or I would think there would be, at that level of us having the responsibility of a CDL, and knowing the blood alcohol level is much lower, and he's been convicted, is he driving in Oregon with a CDL? And I would think that there would be some type of a time frame where you wouldn't be able to achieve one with having a DUI case like this. So after hearing from the chief, sounds like he is driving again, but it's like, I just thought of that as a little bit of a red flag, as of just questioning. But no, I totally agree with trying to give people second chances and things like that, but like we've all noticed too, that he is still on probation in Oregon until 2026. So it's kind of a concern to me as well. So there's just a lot of numerous factors to this case, and I wouldn't doubt that he hasn't learned the lesson and he's still paying for it for a while. But I think the severity of it is significant in the outcome of the accident. So, and the comments. Chief.
Anyone else?
For the record, my name is Claire McGrew, and I'm not hearing anything that I would disagree with or I would add comment to. I think with the exception of maybe Sean's aspect, I was hearing from the chief that he has returned to logging. I don't know if it involves a CDL or not, so I just want to bring that up as a conversational piece. Again, I don't want to dig too much into that. I would completely agree with the aggravating circumstances in everything. I think also one other piece for me is that this occurred while he was at work as well. So there's the complexity of not just CDL maybe on personal time, but in a capacity where there may be policies that could have been violated surrounding that, not just from a driving requirement, but also from a work requirement as well. So maybe some additional components. I also, as far as mitigating as well, agree. There is, I am glad to hear that this individual has not had any alcohol since this event, and certainly I would be remiss if I didn't mention that that is incredibly positive, and I do I recognize the action and the challenge that could come along with that as well, and so I want to ensure that that is recognized as well as part of our considerations. However, I would like to see some additional considerations if there was some wellness components or some diversion or something that was included in this as well. It can be a challenging process. That's all I have, Chair.
For failure review, for the record, I just wanted to mention, just because we've discussed diversion a couple of times, this may not have been eligible for diversion just because of the type of case, and given he was had a CDL. So that might be why there's no indication in the court or police documents about treatment. That may be part of the terms of his probation. So we just may not have that information. If you discuss this and you choose, if you would like me to find out more based on his probation, you can also always return the staff report. So that is always an option, because it sounds like that is an aggravating factor, but it would probably be good to know if that is part of his probation or not.
That is something that was mentioned in cases before that we took into account as mitigating factors, whether that was done or not.
It isn't mentioned in any of the letters, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't take place.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't counted against him if we just don't have that information.
Thank you, Brooke.
Chris Upple, chair of the committee for the record. I'll provide notification for that in terms of seeking some type of health or wellness component that is typically associated with this, other than simply self-care around that, I think is what I will say from my perspective that I was at on that particular component. Just for clarification, I would say one other just mitigating component for me is that individuals can also stay engaged within organizations on a volunteer basis, regardless of your certifications and qualifications with an organization. And so I just want to say the fact that he's continued to stay engaged, et cetera, around these challenges is noteworthy. So I'll certainly leave it at that. With that, I see Committee Member McClellan online. Got your hands up.
Yes, Isaac McLennan here. Yes, thank you. For my part, I for aggravating factors, it was well mentioned, so I don't need to repeat it. But for me, it's not just it's the stacking of those issues one after another, and those cumulative aggravating factors are problematic. And I also attend to the fact that mitigating factors. There's a lot of right steps that's going on here with this individual, and I really applaud him for that. But for myself, one of the things I'm concerned about, and I really advocate for, is going through an actual substance abuse professional. Getting on that program shows real commitment for me on that side, and that's all I want to add from my part. But I really appreciate everyone's comments, and I agree with everybody. Every comment's been made so far.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Room or online? Hearing none, we'll go back to Brooke with DPSST staff to recall the factors that we've discussed here as members.
All right, so for aggravating, that his blood alcohol content was noted at a 0.116, that he caused an injury to another individual, there was damage to property, that there's not information that he has completed a formal substance abuse program, that he still owes fines to the court and is still on probation. He had a CDL license, so they're held to a higher standard. That the passenger asked him to slow down, and that they were doing a ride along because he was burning through tires, so that indicates that there may have been a pattern of maybe poor driving habits. Let's see, demonstration of poor decision making, and then this occurred while he was working. For mitigating, that he has continued to stay on the department as a volunteer through this process, but even if he can't be certified, that he's dedicated to being a firefighter, that he hasn't been drinking since this incident, and then the passage of time is also one of the things that has been mentioned as a mitigating circumstance. Are there any that I have missed?
I have Claire McGrew. I have one additional mitigating that I think is worth noting as well. It does appear from the letters that were submitted. There's positive letters that were provided from individuals, and it does appear from the letters that I was reading that there is that the individual has been very honest with the chiefs about this scenario and the forward momentum that this has provided for them. So I think that that deserves consideration.
Okay. Any other aggravating or mitigating circumstances that I may have missed?
With that, I just want to go ahead and confirm with the committee that we have consensus on the identified factors. Okay, it appears we have consensus. With that, we'll go ahead and move forward with adopting the record as the basis for the discussion and the committee. So I would call for a motion to accept the discussion and the committee discussion here and the staff report.
I'll make a motion. This is Isaac McClellan. I'll make the motion that we accept the report and the discussion.
Okay, I have a first.
Jack Carriger, I moved the second.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for the second. Any discussion on the motion to adopt the staff report as it is and the discussion we had? Hearing none, I'd ask staff to make a roll call.
Committee Member Carriger,
Aye.
Committee Member McGrew,
Yes.
Committee Member Ponce,
Yes.
Committee Member Heppel,
Aye.
Member Olson,
Yes.
Committee Member Lindauer,
Aye.
Committee Member McLean.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The fire policy will now move forward with a recommendation of either action or no action. This will be done through a motion or a vote. Just as a reminder, action is recommended revocation period for 1 year from the board meeting. If there is no action that is motion and voted on, the firefighter maintains their certifications. With that, I'll call for a motion. Again, the floor is open for a call for a motion as to either take action or recommend action or no action. Second call.
Andy Ponce, for the record, this is a hard one for me to figure out which way I want to go with it because there's not enough mitigating and or aggravating factors to sway or to help me with that decision.
Okay.
Sean Olson, for the record. I'm in the same position. It's difficult to make a determination of whether or not to go either direction.
Okay, I'll hold it right here and we'll just look for comments from staff as a recommendation
of direction.
So Caleb Allrott, for the record, appreciate the healthy discussion. These were some really great mitigating and aggravating circumstances that you brought up. So since we've gone through, talked about those things and adopted the staff report, really appreciate that it is a difficult decision. That is definitely why we're here, and these are often really difficult decisions because it is an important one. However, we do need an action, whether or not it's action or no action. We do need some sort of direction to go on this. If you do feel that, like Brooke mentioned earlier, if there's any additional research that she does need to do, that is also a possibility. You can call for a motion. I believe you can call for a motion to go back and not adopt the staff report and have her go back and do some more research. But we would also need direction on what that research would be, what you might want to hear.
And if we were to take action, sorry, Andy Ponson for the record here, if we were to take action, this would come back up in a year, correct?
Caleb Allrott for the record. So, not necessarily, only if he applies again. So if you take action, he would be revoked essentially for 1 year from the board meeting, and then after that 1 year, if he did anything, additional in mitigation, and also the passage of time is also always a mitigating factor, he could apply again after a year, but that would be his choice.
Okay.
And this is considered a felony conviction. So based on the and the dates are based on the conviction date, not the arrest date, and also then the board date. So the board, if you took action on this, he could apply 1 year for the board date, and then he could apply every year after going through that process until that 10-year time period is up. So in, let's see, 2032 would be when we would not consider this anymore.
So Andre Lindauer, for the record, sorry, is there any way to wait until fines are paid, a more concrete, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but some concrete assurance that this, frankly, massive lack of judgment would not impede future performance? I understand, the brain isn't fully formed until 25. We've had this talk before, but this is egregious, and I'm very glad that I'm not the only one who's had trouble with this. I read through this a couple of times, and I just think if that had been my sister in the truck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm struggling with this, and I don't see much concrete evidence of improvement, a forward trajectory. That's my end.
So again, kind of our two routes that we can go is you would go back to not adopting the staff report, and I would go gather more information, in which it sounds like you would like more information about the specifics of probation and potentially where he's at specifically with his fines and fees. So, it may be different if he owed $10,000 versus $200. So that would be one route we can take if you are comfortable with the fact that he does still owe money. The other option is to take action or no action. And if you take action, that gives that 1 year timeline. There's not, unfortunately, a way to be like, well, once he pays his fines and fees, then we'll reassess this. It kind of has to go within those channels. If you decide to not adopt the staff report, then it would come back before you in November with further information.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sean Olson, just for question, if we were to vote to take action, could the board say, okay, we're going to take action for a period of 1 year with certain stipulations, like, okay,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just set because that way it's the same for every applicant.
Caleb Allrott for the record, just as a little history on our revocation timeframe and why it's set up that way. So in the past, we've had this similar struggles, we've always had similar struggles with the decisions and the weight and the difficulty of these decisions. So we used to have a time frame that if you took action, you would determine between 30 days and 7 years when someone was revoked. And we changed that to just this 1 year period to give the Fire Policy Committee the opportunity to take action if they would like. And that gives the firefighter the opportunity to complete additional mitigation that you might have talked about during the Fire Policy Committee meeting. And then that's the reason they can come back in that 1 year period so that they can show you potentially, I've done this and this and this as a mitigating circumstance and fulfilled the kind of mitigating circumstances that the Fire Policy Committee wished they had seen the first time around. So that's kind of the history on that 1 year period. It doesn't need to, have any weight on whether or not you take any action here, but that is an opportunity and the reason we kind of set it up that way in the past, kind of recent past.
So I'd like to make a motion that we not accept the report, and we look for information on whether he's made any attempts to pay down his fine or anything, because I understand if he's got a new family, could be that he still has a little bit to pay off or hasn't started at all. And if there was any option for diversion and or substance abuse counseling offered, and or if he's done any of that, maybe just didn't make it into the report. And then that way we can revisit it in November and not be a stumbling block for him for another year. So let's make sure we're not missing something there.
Andre Lindauer, second.
All right, so from just from a formality perspective, then I need to go ahead and recall my statement because on the floor we had a motion, which was for the fire policy to take a position of action or no action. I will go ahead and recall that motion from the floor at this time. My understanding from the committee is that they, based on recommendation or direction or what's the word here? The option from DPSST staff would be to recall the adoption of the record, which we just voted on, and then move forward as stated with Brooke doing some more research and coming back in November. With that, I'll call for a motion on the recalling of the adoption of the staff report as it was presented.
Yes,
Jack.
I'll recall the staff.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Need a second?
Andre
Jack,
Lindauer, second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion on the recall of the adoption of the staff report that was presented? Hearing none, I'll ask DPSST staff to call the roll.
Committee Member Carriger,
Aye.
Committee Member McGrew,
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce,
Aye.
Committee Member Apple,
Aye.
Committee Member Olson,
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer,
Aye.
Committee Member McLean.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, with that, so we've closed out that discussion there. I would go back to DPSST staff to ask, is there any further direction needed for this case to come back to us in November?
I have, the direction so far has been you would like more probation information, more information about the fines and fees, and then any formal substance abuse treatment information. Was there anything, I can also, you had mentioned the CDL in Oregon versus California. I could find out more information about that if you would like.
Sure. Just curious. Thank you.
Okay, and then with that, I don't think there's any further voting needed, so. Chief Burris, thank you for your time. I can give you a call as well as Clayton to kind of discuss what the next steps look like after this meeting, if that's all right.
Okay, yep, sounds good. thank you guys. We'll provide any information needed.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe that completes agenda number 4. We'll now move on to agenda number 5, which is fire administrative actions. And then it's back to DPSST staff with Brooke.
Thank you. Brooke Valerie, for the record, the following case was processed administratively by DPSST staff due to being qualified as a discharge for cause. This memo is being provided as an informational update for the policy committee. Charles Spittles was affiliated with Tillamook Fire District, and he was discharged from the district in December of 2022. DPSST staff requested the investigation and information that led to Spittles' termination and found that his behavior qualified as a discharge for cause due to his intentional harassment of another department member. The investigation revealed that he set up an unauthorized camera which captured a member of the department masturbating in the department's mechanics bay. He then took that video recording and distributed it to other department members. Based on this behavior, DPSST has issued a notice of intent to revoke, and his certifications are revoked permanently. Are there any questions about discharges or this case in particular? There's no votes needed. It's just informational. Okay.
Okay, hearing no questions from the room or online, move on to number 6, which is the proposed rule changes for Oregon Administrative Rule 259-009-0087. This goes back to staff for presentation. I believe Jennifer's presented it.
Hi, thank you. Jennifer Howell for the record. Kayla, were you going to preview?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that. Kayla Ballrock for the record, just as a kind of a preamble for what Jennifer is going to present. What you're seeing here today is coming out of a district liaison officer conference that we had in April of 2024, so just a few months ago. We had not had a district liaison officer, or DLO for short, conference in several years, so this was long overdue. And for those of you who aren't super familiar with the DLOs, they are a group of volunteers, typically chiefs or training officers, placed throughout Oregon, and they are able to help the certification team out immensely. So they do accreditation agreement reviews for each fire department that has an accreditation agreement that says what they can teach and train in-house. And those expire every 3 years. So, and we have very few people on our certification team. So that would be just a constant travel around Oregon for them to do those reviews. So DLOs help us out with that, as well as a few other items that they're able to assist with. So that being said, we got this conference together. It was a couple of day conference. It was a very full packed agenda, and we reviewed their roles and responsibilities and their procedures and processes that they do. And one of the things that came out of that conference was kind of a review of the accreditation agreement, Oregon Administrative Rule, and their processes. This hadn't been touched in many years. So at this point, I'm probably stepping on what Jennifer is going to say. So I will kick it back over to Jennifer.
All right, thanks so much. Jennifer Howell for the record. Mirrored my introduction perfectly. So with that, we can go ahead and jump right into your memo. Your memo included just that background and the issue statement, but we also included a plain copy of the current rule text, and then followed it with a plain copy of the proposed rule changes. Because as I was making those lines and marks, it became very complex and difficult to read. So it was easier just to present them as the two separate texts. And then it's followed by a summary of the differences between them. So if you start on page 4 with the proposed rule changes, I'm just going to highlight a bit of the summary for the record. Section 1 adds a purpose statement to help define accreditation. It includes identification of the DPSST R1 form, which is used to conduct accreditation reviews and provides guidance for the review process. Section 2 lists the requirements that a fire service agency needs to meet and maintain in order to have accredited training programs. In the revision and reorganization process, we found that the current rule listed some requirements under the initial application and some requirements under the renewal process. And really, all of those requirements are true at both times. So we were able to combine that list. Other language updates in the list incorporate processes or details that were part of the R1 form. There are 3 highlights I want to mention with regard to Section 2. First, looking at Sections 2E and F. Accreditation requires the fire service agency needs to have at least one currently certified NFPA Fire Instructor 1. When we discussed what this means with the DLOs, it became clear that requiring someone to be qualified as an NFPA Fire Instructor 1 doesn't always mean that the person will have the knowledge and experience they need to teach a certification level. The addition of Section 2F identifies who may be considered a qualified instructor. So the requirement is that you have this Instructor 1 available, but that whenever you're delivering the courses, you have a qualified instructor to deliver the courses. So the qualified instructor was determined to be a combination of what experience they hold in the certification level, whether they hold that certification or whether they're considered a content expert by the authority having jurisdiction, and what is their experience for teaching the certification level. Do they have the NFPA Fire Instructor 1, or do they have equivalent instructor training and experience? So it allows the authority having jurisdiction to say, okay, this is our qualified instructor, they meet this combination of items, and we've listed them out there. Section 2G adds clarification that task books and task performance evaluations, or the TPE, need to be the DPSST approved versions of those, and that corresponds with requirements for certification. Connecting the task books and the TPE to the certification requirements helps to recognize that the TPE option isn't available for every certification level. Section 2H changes the requirements for training record retention. Under the current rule, it states that training records need to be kept for at least 5 years. The current rule does not specify how the 5 years are measured. So that could be from the date the training was completed, or it could be something else. And so you'll probably see a variety of things across agencies. The recommended changes to 2H recognize that the fire service agency may already have a records retention policy in place that fits their needs. If they don't, then the rule provides a recommendation that keeping the records for 5 years from the date of separation. And that recommended retention schedule recognizes the importance of keeping training and certification records for the entirety of a fire service professional's time with their fire service agency, not necessarily just the 5 years from the date the training was completed. In sections 3 and 4, there's reorganization of the current rule language related to DPSST issuance of the written accreditation agreement, the 3-year accreditation period, and the process to request renewal of the accreditation agreement. Section 4B reduces the time that's allowed for an extension of the accreditation agreement. During the COVID pandemic, we amended the rule to include a process whereby there could be an extension to the accreditation agreement because there were many challenges with the pandemic. But before that, there wasn't a time extension option at all. So by reducing the time that's allowed for a time extension, it provides a better balance between past practice and current practice. Section 5 adds additional clarification to DPSST termination of an accreditation agreement and the fire service agency's opportunity to appeal the termination. The current rule states that DPSST can terminate an agreement for cause and that the fire service agency may appeal the termination, but the rule does not define what for cause means or what DPSST will do with the appeal. So in the changes that we propose, we replaced the for cause language with termination on the grounds of no longer meeting accreditation standards or violating the written accreditation agreement. And then we also added specific appeal steps for the fire service agency and for DPSST. Finally, Section 6 clarifies DPSST access to a fire service agency's training records. And the revision here adds that the DLO is a DPSST designee for the purpose of reviewing those training records. And then it also identifies that the purpose for reviewing training records is to verify training certification and accreditation standards are met. So just creating a nexus there. Part of the rule change process requires review to determine if the rule changes have any fiscal impacts on DPSST, on the fire service, the public, or small businesses. DPSST considered these rule changes and did not find any changes that do create a fiscal impact. Accreditation is a voluntary process, and the most significant changes to these rules in the instructor requirements and the records retention remain flexible to allow the fire service agency to be accredited using the resources and policies that fit their unique needs. The fiscal impact statements in your memo can be changed if the committee finds that there are costs that have not been addressed. And I would be happy to answer any questions. I also would re-invite you to add anything else that you would like to about the rule or the process. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions for Jennifer, DPSST staff around the proposed changes to this OER? In the room?
Andy Ponce for the record. How often do we teach NFPA Fire Instructor 1 courses and stuff for those agencies to get brought up to speed?
Kayla Balra for the record. Our staff teaches it every once in a while. If it is requested, they'll absolutely teach Instructor 1. There's also plenty of Instructor 1 classes going on, put on by training associations and local fire departments that they usually invite other people to as well.
Okay.
Any other questions in the room? Online? Any questions to the proposed rule changes? Okay, hearing none, we've got 2 actions. First of all, as the board, we need to discuss to affirm or amend the physical impact statements prepared by the staff. You would find that on page 8 or the last page of the packet that was provided to you. If you could just go ahead and review those. And does anyone have any discussions around the physical impact statements prepared by staff? If there are no discussions, are there any recommended changes? Hearing none, I would just look for confirmation of consensus of the impact statement as presented. It appears we have consensus. The next item will be for the committee by motion and by vote. The Fire Policy Committee to recommend that the board approve and adopt the proposed rule change in OAR 259-009-0087 as permanent rule. I'll call for the motion, and the motion should choose from one of 3 things. One, either is to affirm, to recommend that the change moves forward to the DPSST for adoption of the presented OER. The second would be to modify if there are proposed changes to the rule as was presented. And the third would be to negate, in that the board, or the committee rather, does not recommend that the board approve and adopt the proposed rule. Knowing those 3 choices, I'll call for a motion from the Fire Policy Committee to recommend or modify or negate the proposed OER change.
Andy Ponce for the record. I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve or affirm. Looking for a second.
Jack Carriger, second.
Thank Chief Carriger for a second. Any discussions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll ask DPSST staff to make the roll.
Committee Member Carriger,
Aye.
Committee Member McGrew,
Yes.
Committee Member Ponce,
Aye.
Committee Member Heppel,
Aye.
Committee Member Olson,
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer,
Aye.
Committee Member McLean.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, that closes out agenda number 6. Agenda number 7 we've already completed, but I will certainly tee it back up to DPSST staff if there's any further agency updates.
Kayla Bauer for the record, no further agency updates. Just a thank you for everyone that came today and had some good, healthy discussions. Really appreciate it. So thank you.
Great, appreciate it too. Next meeting will be on November 20th at 0900. At this time, I will close the Fire Policy Committee at DPSST on the 28th of August at 10:27. Thanks everybody for